Come, let us explore what they do not tell us about breathing meditation. This morning's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. A question that begins alternatives of breath and then continues. Has anyone found along their meditation journey other techniques that are more productive or simply more effective for them than focusing on the breath? So this is a keyword. We will return to this. Sometimes when I focus on my breath, it feels harder for me to relax and let my awareness flow freely. I find that shifting my attention to my entire body or my emotions can sometimes make it easier to maintain focus and allow awareness to naturally unfold. I mention this because I know that focusing on the breath is considered fundamental. However, I often wonder, is this something I need to keep working on to eventually get better at and enjoy? Or should I consider switching to something that works better for me? This is an excellent question that I look forward to answering. I'll begin with broad brushstrokes. So I'm going to hit a number and there we go. Been having difficulty with this lately. So let's begin with the band stand logical fallacy. How does that work? All these people doing it, they can't all be doing it wrong, therefore you should do it too. That's the basic bandstand fallacy. But it's based on a house of cards. When we go back to the Buddha's earliest meditation manual, the Anapanasati Sutta, he does not teach us to concentrate on our breath, but to coordinate with our breath. What's the difference? I think neuroscience has the answer for us, so let's take a gander. Whether we call it focus, or concentrate, or shamatha, or samatha, concentration is still concentration. And the only part of our central nervous system that is wired to concentrate are the mechanisms such as those found in the medial prefrontal cortex. We're designed to think in short bursts. When we use our brain to concentrate for 5 or 10 or 15 or 30 or 45 or 60 minutes, we are going to stimulate our amygdala, this round thing here about the size of a pea or perhaps an almond, that functions as the seat of our anxiety and our aggression. When we are stimulating our amygdala, it is impossible to relax. Not because we're weak, not because we're inexperienced, because we are wired not to relax in the presence of anxiety. We are wired to respond to anxiety with aggression or with fear. We're designed to respond to anxiety by fighting or fleeing or fainting. We are not designed to respond to anxiety by being laid back. The amygdala, while inconvenient, is an important tool that evolved to ensure the survival not only of Homo sapiens, not only of primates, not only of mammals. It is found throughout the majority of complex animal life forms. This is a fundamental survival mechanism, and we excite it by concentrating on anything, even as something as mundane as our breath. Fortunately, there's more to our central nervous system than just our prefrontal cortex and our amygdala. The most efficient way to practice mindfulness is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation. Doing so impels the cerebral cortex to cooperate with our sympathetic nervous system. This sympathetic nervous system is ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. It has evolved to help us perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. The opposite of concentration, the opposite of focus. We have evolved to perceive sight, sound, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. What are we to do, though, with that which we notice? The answer to that brings us to meditation. The most efficient way to practice meditation is by silently, mentally, and passively reciting the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation. Doing so induces our cerebral cortex to cooperate with our parasympathetic nervous system, which is ensconced within both the lower third as well as the upper third of our spinal cord. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to help us both physically relax as well as mentally release. So the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems are two facets of our autonomic nervous system. There are 3 benefits to doing this. Number 1, it calms our anxious and aggressive amygdala. Number 2, it excites our anterior cingulate gyrus, which has evolved to function as the hub of our mirror neurons and the seat of empathy and compassion and love. This is why the late Tulku Thondup, formerly of Tibet, insisted that the highest love is not the product of active concentration or active contemplation reliant upon our medial or dorsolateral prefrontal cortici, but instead is the spontaneous and uncontrived fringe benefit of simply noticing and releasing. The third benefit is this. The more we do so, the more regularly we train in mindfulness and meditation, perhaps once every 12 hours or so, the more our choices and our utterances and our deeds will flow through the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity. No, not scattered spontaneity, but centered spontaneity. So let's go back to the Anapanasati Sutta. In it, we are not, despite the ravings of questionable meditation teachers, we're not told to concentrate on our breath, but coordinate with our breath. So what's the difference? Concentrating your breath is like peering at something through a microscope. However, coordinating our breath is like treating our breath the way a piano student treats their metronome. Or in other words, when we notice our body inhaling, silently and mentally and passively we recite this. When we notice our body exhaling, silently, mentally, and passively we recite ease. So, why is this mistake so widespread, so ubiquitous? Sadly, that boils down to Sturgeon's Law, which states that 90% of everything sucks, but not in the fun, tingly way. The majority of humans, the majority of meditation teachers, the majority of meditation authors sucking looks like them touting, insisting that being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel are where it's at. And being flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind, well, they're just mental disorders. But I think the Buddha would disagree. I think Lao Tzu would disagree. And I think that if you had put these techniques into practice, you too could disagree. So let me make sure I answered all your questions and go back and look at the red bits. So, yes, concentration and flow are antithetical. This part of your brain concentrates. This part of your brain notices. This part of your brain, this part of your central nervous system relaxes. This part of your central nervous system lets go. So if you want to hammer a tent peg into the ground that's going to remain unyielding, then you want concentration. If you want to flow, you need to cooperate with the dynamism of your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So there are different things altogether. When you are trying to concentrate and you notice your mind wandering, that's your central nervous system trying to say, basically saying, please stop concentrating. You want to be in the flow, and the flow is over here. It's not here. Those who are rigid, those who are fearful, those who are superstitious, those who are controlling, are not known for their imagination. They're not known for their depth of insight. These are not the Saint Francis of Assisi's. These are the Thomas de Torquemadas. Thomas de Torquemada was known for many things, but his creativity and his flow was not one of them. When we read the 81 poems of the Tao Te Ching, we see that Lao Tzu not only identifies what attributes are yang and which are yin, but also implores his readers to always choose yin. And what we've seen is that if concentration is yang, then awareness and release is most certainly yin. And what we see time and again is that these are not psychological things, but psychological symptoms of physiological mechanisms. And yang and yin are physiological. So is our prefrontal cortex bad? No, but it has to be used the way it evolved to be used. And we use it in a smattering, because if you use it too much, it could go into crisis. Consider this. In your mind's eye, travel back to the Paleolithic era when certain members of the tribe would hunt. While hunting, they would be silent and they would be focused single-pointedly on their prey. This would feed their aggression so that they could fight and throw rocks and throw pointed sticks. And this would feed their anxiety, so if they missed, they could run like hell. Meanwhile, other members of the tribe would forage. And they wouldn't concentrate, they would just notice with a diffuse awareness, so they could notice, not only the berry they were picking, but the next berry and what was going on over here. They could hear predators approaching. Their perception was not single-pointed, but spherical, if that makes sense. Diffuse. It served a different evolutionary purpose. Every warrior, every special forces person, if they've survived enough missions, eventually forsakes yang and turns to yin as a way to cope and undo the damage that yang has done. I think it would be quite lovely if together as a team you practiced after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. And now, together as a team, let us turn our attention to the latest iteration of letting go, mindfulness, meditation, and love. So, our main practice is going to be mindfulness and meditation. But just as a sprinter does not get out of his car and go straight to the starting blocks, but warms up first, we're going to warm up right now with impermanence. One moment. So, let us bring the Satipatthana 4 bases of mindfulness, which in this case are the circumstantial, the physical, the interpersonal, and the mental. So let us bring the Satipatthana 4 bases of mindfulness into Tilakana's 3 marks of realities: anicca, impermanence, and anatta, selflessness. We start with Dhamma, the circumstantial. Observing the coming and going of appearing circumstantial phenomena. Help us to see, however, changing one and all, there is nothing permanent to grasp. So we're going to take all these words and coalesce them into just 6 syllables that we're going to divide between our inhalation and our exhalation. We're going to use the word lots as a monosyllabic synonym for circumstances. We turn now to the Kaya physical. Feeling the coming and going of sensual phenomena. Help us to feel, however, changing one and all. There is nothing permanent to grasp. We turn now to the Vedana interpersonal. Listening to the coming and going of resounding interpersonal phenomena. Help us to hear, however, changing one and all. There is nothing permanent to grasp. We conclude with the Chitta mental. Please chant with me. Noticing the coming and going of lucid mental phenomena. Help us to clearly perceive, however, changing one and all. There is nothing permanent to grasp. We're going to take all these words and coalesce them down to just 6 syllables that we're going to divide between our inhalation and our exhalation. Having concluded our warm-up, we are now ready for the main body of the practice, where we bring whatever we spontaneously notice into the paths of sati awareness, also known as mindfulness, and samadhi release, also known as meditation. So let us perform 3 collections of 144 rounds. We do this in 3 stages. During the first stage, first of all, let's start with brass tacks. What is meant in meditation by a round? A round is another way of saying a repetition. It's another way of saying a set of 1 inhalation and 1 exhalation. So the first thing we do is break it down, and the second thing we do is work on technique. So how do we break down 144 rounds into 12 sets of 12 repetitions? Now, how do we count 12 repetitions on just 4 fingers and 1 thumb? Simple. During the inhalation, while silently and mentally and passively reciting the demonstrative pronoun this, we advance the right thumb, beginning with the little finger. So this would be the first. So let's do this together right now. Fabulous. You've just learned how to count 12 repetitions. On our left hand, we can count sets of those repetitions, beginning with our index finger. Our first set of 12 repetitions, our second set, our third set, our fourth set, and so on. Now, we talked about 3 collections, and we count collections on the knuckles at the base of our right hand. And here's how we do that. During the first collection, we rest the great knuckle at the base of our right little finger upon the tip of our left little finger with both hands in our lap. During the third collection, we would do the same thing with our ring fingers. During the third collection, we would do the same thing with our middle fingers. And if there is a fourth collection, we would do that with our index fingers. And you might say, well, why not just use a timer? Because cell phones break, batteries run out, sometimes they're stolen, sometimes they are confiscated, stolen by officials. But as long as we have our hands, we need not use an external counting device. There are 2 benefits of using our hand, 2 additional benefits. First, the energy systems in our body are holographic. And the knuckle for our little finger correlates to our secret wheel. Ring finger correlates to our navel wheel. Middle finger correlates to our heart wheel. Index finger correlates to our crown wheel, which is pretty cool. The second additional benefit is, I guess the third additional benefit is that it helps with neurodivergent stimming. I'm neurodivergent as fuck, and I've had to work out all sorts of hacks to thrive with meditation, and I've had to play with meditation to survive with my enlarged amygdala, which is common for trauma victims and neurodivergence. So for me, meditation has never been about bragging rights and simply not becoming Mr. Hyde. Having said that, let's practice. Now, if I was super special and I had a second camera, and if YouTube would permit it, I would have 2 cameras, one focusing on my punum and one focusing on my hands and my lap so you can see what's going on. But I don't know how to do that in a way that would be acceptable to YouTube. Bandwidth and stuff like that. If you've just joined me, allow me to catch you up to speed. The most efficient way to practice mindfulness is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation. Doing so induces our cerebral cortex to cooperate with our sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. This sympathetic nervous system has evolved to help us perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Perceive what? Perceive sight, sound, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. But what are we to do with that which we notice? Meditate. What is the most efficient way to practice meditation? To silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during each exhalation. Doing so induces our cerebral cortex to cooperate with our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within both the lower third as well as the upper third of that same spinal cord. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to help us physically relax and mentally release. Let us wind down this meditation session with a brief contemplation of love, wherein we bring the 4 bases of mindfulness into the path of Tilakanta's 3 marks of realities: dukkha, stress, and metta, loving kindness. We begin with the chitta, mental. Since we are not alone in our mental frustrations, we could also long that others' mental needs also be met. Since we are not alone in our interpersonal frustrations, we could also long that others' interpersonal needs also be met. Since we are not alone in our physical frustrations, we could also long that others' physical needs also be met. Since we are not alone in our circumstantial frustrations, we could also long that other circumstantial needs could also be met. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.